All right, I'd like to do a little introduction on Chapter 3, Gold, God, and Glory. This is going to be where our story really begins. The first two chapters gives us basic information on what uh, what we'll be talking about, geography and the American Indians. But now we really get into the history. And the motivations for our explorers will be Gold, God, and Glory, which is the name of the chapter. What I wanted to show you here is a map of the trading routes during this time. As you can see, a lot of the routes, Italy, well, there was no Italy, but Italian states would set up trade routes going all the way to India and China. And of course, we had some trade going with Africa as well. Now, what you really need to understand about these trade routes is that they're all flowing, basically flowing away from Europe. Um, the point that I'm trying to make here, and let me get to the other map because that one might disappear. But the point that I'm trying to make is that Europe is going to become dominant, a dominant force because of exploration. It's going to take over the two Americas. It's going to start colonizing Africa. It's going to um, basically take over India, China, powerful countries, the countries that are super powerful now. Um, well, I mean now, but meaning like 1500 or so. Europe is going to dominate pretty much the entire world, and just part of Europe really. England, Spain, France. Um, those are the ones that are mainly going to run around and dominate almost the entire world. So much so that we'll get to the point where Britain, one of Britain's slogans was, "The sun never sets on the English Empire." Or on the British Empire, meaning that there's some part of the world that the British control that the sun will be shining on because they're everywhere. They're all around the world. Why does this happen? Why is it Europe that comes to dominate? Are they just smarter? Are they better? Are they um, stronger? What's the reason here? Well, there's a couple. And first is the gold. Um, are they have more money? And the answer is no. In fact, quite the opposite. Europe really doesn't have anything. Their natural resources nobody really cares about. You have China that has silk. You have India that has spices. You have Africa that has salt, gold, and except for gold, maybe silk. You're probably thinking, well, I don't, uh, I don't really care about any of these things. But it's important to note that back then there's no refrigerators, uh, there's nothing to keep your food from spoiling, and also there's nothing to make your food taste good. So spice is very important to make everything uh, taste good and be enjoyable. And salt coming from Africa helps preserve meats and fish so that they don't spoil. Remember, we don't have electricity, we don't have anywhere in the world, so salt is very, very important. They just don't have enough, so they need to get it from Africa as well as they want the gold as well. Spice is very important to make sure it tastes well, and of course, the rich people want their silk so that they look real nice. And uh, you know, in this day and age where we have nice clothing and it's comfortable, imagine if all your clothes were made of wool, which is pretty much how the Europeans are living right now. They've got plenty of sheep, so they can make nice wool clothing. But if you've ever worn wool, it's scratchy, itchy. It's just anyway. The Europeans, um, they make things. They have to manufacture items that are interesting that people may want, but they're not especially coveted by the rest of the world. Silk is worth much more than whatever Europe's got. Spice is worth much more than whatever Europe. Gold, salt, worth much more than whatever Europe has. So, as the junior partner, what they have to do is they have to go to these countries to trade with them. China's not going to go to Europe to trade for their trinkets. You want to trade your trinkets for valuable silk, you've got to come to us. You want spice, Europe, you have to come to us. You want the gold and salt, you have to come to us, which makes Europe very interested in traveling. Now, at first, they used the land routes um, in order to make these trades. And whoever, brings back silk, spice, gold, salt, whoever can bring those things back, they're going to be very, very rich. Those things are worth a tremendous amount in Europe. So uh, anybody that's able to complete this trip, they're going to be very, very wealthy. So at first, they're going across um, this very long trade route here in order to bring back this very valuable cargo across the Sahara Desert. But something that interesting happens during this time. It would have continued to be like that, and I don't think Europe would have progressed very quickly. But something devastating happens, and I'd like to show you this map here. This is the Islamic countries. These are the European Christian countries, and then you got other religions here. But these two I want to focus on. And you notice that the trade route goes through Islamic lands, okay? But this city right here, Constantinople, is where much of the trade flows through. Very rich city. It is a Christian city, but watch what happens. As time goes on, let me turn this down because it's kind of weird music. Constantinople falls to the forces of Islam right there. Once that happens, the trade routes that were open to the Europeans, the Christian nations here, are now closed. Okay, they can't go get the spice, they can't go get the silk. This will mean economic devastation for Europe. They need to get over there. Well, how are you supposed to get there if the land routes are cut off? And I'll pause here for effect, let you think about it. If you can't go by land, you have to go by the water. Okay? Well, the Suez Canal over here has not been built yet, so if you're in the Mediterranean, you can't sail over land and then continue to go into these. That would be the easiest thing. But the Suez Canal does not exist yet, won't exist for a couple hundred more years. So the Portuguese that are over here decide, well, why don't we try to sail around Africa, find where the bottom of this place is, and then go through here. Okay? Well, once Spain it becomes Christian again, and you can see Islam spreads all throughout here. Once Spain becomes Christian, all these countries decide, you know what, let's go over here, and they find the Americas and start colonizing. Of course, it becomes Christian. Now this goes into the God part. What happened over here to their trade? They lost their trade route because of religion. If you're not on the same religion, then they can cut you off from your trade, your business, whatever. So they're going to be very interested when they start moving out to these other areas. They want to make darn sure that these people are all Christian and on their side so that they don't have the same problem that they have with the Muslims at Constantinople. Any trade that's set up here, they want to make sure. So they're very motivated to convert everybody over here, not just because they believe in God, but it's also an economic reason. They want to make sure that you're on the same religion. They're very, very keen on being the same religion, and so they're going to convert all the people here to their religion. All right, and so the other part is glory. So we covered gold. They wanted to get the trade. They wanted God to make sure they can preserve the trade. And then the glory part. Well, that starts with our chapter here. And I hope I'm not going too long. I know I try to keep these videos short, but this needs to be explained. We get into our first vocabulary word, plague. Okay? What a plague is a disease that causes a high rate of death and affects many people and spreads easily. Well, they had what was called the Black Death, and the Black Death killed 1/3 of Europe. So you can imagine what that, I mean, you looked around and 1/3 of Bluefield suddenly dropped dead. That would have quite a psychological effect. First of all, you'd wonder, are you going to be one? As more and more people die, are you going to be one of the people that suffers from this Black Death? So it gave the Europeans a very strong sense of mortality. So they started getting a mentality of, hey, if I'm going to die, I'm going to go out in a blaze of glory. I'm going to make something of myself very quickly. So they want to go out and start exploring. They're willing to take the chances that other countries are not willing to take because they think, I'm probably going to die anyway, so I might as well just go out and explore and have an adventure and see what I can do, instead of just sitting around and get sick and die. So that's the glory part of this chapter. And then we get to the birth of science. They start looking at navigation, like I said. Once that road is closed, they want to start sailing. And so navigation is the guiding of a ship from place to place. And then Christianity, a religion based on the teachings of Jesus Christ. The American Indians had never heard of it, and it was very different from the American Indian beliefs. So we can see here that the main countries that we're going to be working with are England, France, and Spain. Okay, Portugal we're going to talk about real quick here because they're the ones that try to go around Africa. Let me see if I get the map here. So they're going to try to sail all the way around Africa and go here, and they're going to be pretty successful. But it's the other three nations that we're really going to focus on. So here we have economics. They wanted to um, set up trade routes. They wanted to spread the religion to make sure that the people that they encounter will be on their side, unlike what happened with the Islamic nations where they got cut off from their trade. And then, of course, power. They wanted to make a huge empire. They wanted to be in control of that so that they can never again be cut off from whatever money that they can make.